Hello, my name is Brianna Kaleen, and welcome back to the Suffering for Art podcast, a podcast that explores the highs and the lows of being an everyday creative human through the lens of mental health, financial literacy, and relational health. I'm so happy you're here. Guys, if you've tuned in, you know that I typically will not look directly at the camera. I don't know why, it really freaks me out. For those of you who don't know, I actually have a fear of public speaking. And yet I have a podcast. Yeah. Face your fears. But no, I usually will be reading off of something that I have worked on for the past weeks. I kind of consider it like a dissertation of whatever topic that I'm talking about. And I'll read off what I've written essentially in essay form with all the research and everything. But for some reason, I was feeling adventurous this episode and decided to do everything off the cuff. I'm kind of scared. No, I think it's going to be great. So if I'm not as eloquent as usual, give me grace, be nice, or else. Anywho, today's topic, if you're wondering, is how to have a beautiful and full life, how to love your life when you do not have accolades or achievements happening. I think a lot of the times when we are creatives, we're striving towards some kind of dream or goal. At any moment in our life, it can be the long-term goal that you have or the short-term goal that you have. And it's every single day is waking up and trying to make that happen. And then when it happens, it's yes, wonderful, wonderful. And you have a really high peak and then it's over and all the congratulations are done and people have moved on. And suddenly you're back to grinding towards the next achievement. And I always say this career path really looks like a roller coaster instead of a steady climb, which a lot of careers will look like a steady climb up a mountain, whereas creatives, our career paths look like a roller coaster. And if you're watching the video, you're seeing my hand go up and down because no matter where you are in your career, no matter how long you've been doing this professionally, you more than likely will have an off season. If you haven't, you need to teach us your ways. You, especially in theater, if you're a theater person, it is you can work towards Broadway for 10 years and then finally get on Broadway. And then you have another 10-year stint where you're not on Broadway. And the question is, in those meantime, when you're still working really hard and putting in the effort and working towards your goal, but you're not at your goal yet, how do you love your life in that in between? I like to consider it a harvest season and a planting season. And if you've ever grown up in church, that's kind of what you hear all the time. And no, this is not a religious episode. Don't pause and leave. It's just a reference. But anywho, the whole premise of that is like farmers, you're going to sit and plant a lot of seeds in a season and you won't see any growth, but every single day you go out and you're going to water it, you're going to till the soil, you're going to hope for a wonderful harvest. And you don't really know when the harvest is coming. You can kind of guesstimate, but sometimes you get something, sometimes you don't. And it really doesn't matter your work ethic. It kind of just depends on what the soil decides to do. And sometimes you can get the biggest, potato ever. And sometimes you get the smallest potato. And you put in the same amount of work, but that was your harvest for that season. And I think a lot of the times creatives are in that planting season. If you ask me right now what I'm doing, I'm going to say I'm planting a lot of seeds and I'm not seeing any rewards. And it's really hard to be in that situation where people are coming up to you and being like, what's next? I hate that question. What's next? What are you doing? What's on the radar? And it's well, I don't have a big flashy thing to say. I haven't booked a show and I haven't done this or that and the success of this field, but I am working every day and I'm putting in the effort and I'm tilling the earth and watering the ground. And it's how do I love my life when I'm waiting for the harvest? So that's what this episode is about. Okay, so I think there are 4 different ways that you can really learn to love your life. I'm going to stop saying, wait, no. I think there are 4 ways that you can learn to love your life in this planting season that you may be in or the one that's coming up for you. And I think that is making sure that creativity is a, what's the word I'm looking for? is a result of your lived experiences instead of your entire world. And let me break that down. I think a lot of creatives, they wake up and it's like, okay, you got to be on your Zoom, you got to grind, you got to do all the things, you got to post on social media, you got to show up, you got to be in the rooms, you got to meet the people and network and have the money and do everything. And it's like, okay, that means your whole world, from finances to relationships to emotional stability to career field, everything is circling around your creativity, which means your lived experiences are just working towards one goal. I think creativity should be an extension of your lived experiences or result of your lived experiences. If I'm a painter, I wish I was. I can't paint to save my life. It's my one flaw. But if I was a painter and I went to a lake for 15 minutes and I saw, I don't know, someone get engaged on this lake, and I decided the next morning, I want to paint something. And the first thing that comes to mind is this picture that I saw the previous day at that lake with the engagement couple. Suddenly I'm painting something that happened during my lived experience. Same thing with theater and characters. If I am trying to portray this character and portray a story well, and literally theater is just portraying lived experiences, but I've never lived for myself, it's going to be pretty difficult to have the fuel and the creative inspiration to take on a character who has gone on a boat if I've never gone on a boat. And it's not to say you can't act it, but it would be easier if you have that lived experience. So I think a lot of the times creatives are living for work. There's this really good phrase that I love. It says, they are too alive to die and too dead to live. In other words, our life is revolving in this constant cycle of like work, and you're so tired and you're exhausted and mentally fatigued and anxiety ridden, and you feel this pressure and you're just living but not really living it to the full. That is what happens when your entire life is creativity, instead of you living your life and creativity being the result of it. So, how do we live our life? And this is such a funny thing to ask because it kind of seems like a very easily answered question, but I think a lot of people can answer it one of two ways. You can answer it in a way that's actually true to what you want, or you can answer it in a way that's true to what society and culture tells you is right. So, like living a beautiful life, what does that look like for you? Have you ever thought of that? Like, if I wake up tomorrow, and I think I've said this in a previous episode, like, what would my ideal day be? What would I love about my life if I lived it with what I love? A lot of people, you haven't picked up a book since like high school, but you love reading. And it's like, okay, do you even have a library card? Hello? Some of you love movies and you haven't been to the movies, or you haven't like watched a movie on HBO or Netflix in a very long time because you've just been so busy creating. Some of you really love nature, and you have yet, if you live in New York City, to go to Governor's Island, one of the most beautiful nature places in the city. No, that's not sponsored. And yes, it is a plug for all my nature people. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people love a lot of things, and yet their lives aren't even filled with them. And then we wonder why we don't love our lives. So I can tell you why your life isn't filled with them. It's because you're living the life that society is telling you to live. You are filling it with work. You're grinding. You are putting in the effort. You are doing overtime. You are, door dashing, and you are filling your day scrolling. You wake up. This is your routine if you're living like society tells you to. You wake up and you immediately turn to your phone to turn off your alarm. That is low-key drama-filled to hear that in the morning and wake up to. You haven't even changed your alarm. You could wake up to the sound of birds if you wanted to. Just throwing that out there. But you turn over to your phone and you immediately start scrolling on Instagram or TikTok. And you might do that for about an hour. Okay. If not an hour, 15 minutes, You then get up, maybe you shower the night before. I'm not going to judge you either way. You might eat breakfast, or you might be a person who just starts making coffee or goes to the coffee shop and gets a cup of coffee and drinks it on an empty stomach, which is caffeine inducing, and your cortisol levels will spike. So you're already starting off the morning stressed, You're hungry, even though it's not registering in your body. Your brain, your body is saying, I'm hungry. I need nutrients and fuel to get through this day. And this caffeine is going to wear off soon. But no, we just, keep going. You go down to Subway, you go to work, the job you hate, and you're there for 8 hours. And you're miserable. You leave that job and your body's sore from standing up all day, and you're tired, and on your break you scrolled again and maybe had fast food that was nearby because you didn't prep food before or take a lunch, and you spent money on that. And then you're on the subway home and someone's acting crazy and you feel unsafe because New York is whack. And then you finally get home and it's like 6 or 7. You go immediately inside to the house that's a mess, which fills you with stress, but you're so stressed that you can't actually clean it. So then instead of, cooking, you order DoorDash so that you can work on your creative endeavors when you get home. You are then working on whatever creative project you have, whether it's a self-tape or, a book deadline that you have, a sculpture that you have in your apartment, whatever it is, you're working on that until the wee hours of the morning. And then you go on your bed and you scroll until you fall asleep. Now, we all know that not getting enough sleep is bad for you. But did you know that if you are getting 1 less hour of sleep than what's recommended, or if you're just losing an hour of sleep from what you usually do, there is a 25% increase in the risk of having a cardiac arrest? Literally, like when America, we do day life savings and spring forward. The one where you lose the hour, I want to say that's spring forward. I don't know. I think it's dumb. I thought we were getting rid of it and then we didn't. And I'm still upset about it. But whichever one that we lose an hour, there's literally a 25% increase in cardiac arrest episodes in hospitals that day. And then when we fall back and we gain an hour, there's a 25% drop in cardiac arrest in hospitals around the nation. So that is clearly indicating that, an hour of sleep, that loss is actually really, really important to your body. And so it's recommended, I know you guys know this, but 8 hours of sleep for men, 8 to 10 hours of sleep for women. I think it's actually 7 to 8 for men and 8 to 10 for women is the recommended amount of sleep that your body needs to function. And yet many of us are not getting that because we are filling our days grinding and trying to make it, right? That's society's way of living, okay? And in society's way of living, you are kind of typically reassured that you'll be able to provide for yourself and live a life that is at least stable because you are working a 9 to 5. You should have enough money for rent. Because you are working and all of those things, you should be able to have a sustainable lifestyle. And yet, in this economy, in this day and age, the blueprint that was set out before in previous generations does not necessarily work for the generation that we are in now. Gen Z, it is actually, I believe, statistically proven that it's 50% of us have more debt than the generation before us. And if you think about it, which I know we all know this, we were told that, degrees would get us jobs, and yet the job market is worse than it's ever been. And so you have all this debt from college that you need to pay off, but you can't get a job in your field. And so you're working jobs where if you didn't know, the national minimum wage is still $7.25. It hasn't been changed in years. And yet the cost of rent has nearly 40% increase, I'm pretty sure. It is the most expensive place to live right now. New York City, I think we're tied with California or something like that. And yet many of us can't get jobs in our field, especially if you're a creative. With that being said, we are in this track lane that wasn't actually built for us as creatives, first of all, but especially in this day and age and economy, doing what the world and society has told us to do. Waking up, scrolling, going to work, coming home, door dashing, scrolling when I go to sleep is not going to be the most beneficial thing for your life. And it's definitely not going to be the way you're going to end up loving your life. Okay? Now, the second option that I talked about is Living a life that is full of rest. And I know y'all are tired of me saying that, but I have to say it again because it really is so important. Many of you all do not have a rhythm of rest in your life. What I mean by that is, I don't know. Yes, I do. So I love to have this like demonstration in my brain that my therapist said to me one time. Shout out to you. I love her. But if things and opportunities are going to come my way, I want to be able to walk through them and it be like the doors that are motion censored. So I'm able to walk up to the door and it motion censored, and I don't have to change the pace of my step to enter into something new. And so if there's a tunnel and it's a bunch of motion censored doors, then as I walk, there is no change in the rhythm of my pace. Now, if I have no routine, if I have no stability, if I am exhausted and tired and depressed and anxiety filled and just living life in a way that is so taxing, when those opportunities come, I'm going to have to take a second to recalibrate, to be ready for them. I'm pausing at the door and I'm having to lug it open with the last amount of strength that I have. And I'm stepping into this opportunity without any kind of creative energy. And I'm like barely there. I'm like, finally, I made it to this dream that I've been wanting for a long time. And I don't even have the energy for the dream because I've been so tired in this off season trying to grind my way to this dream that I suddenly can't even appreciate because I'm so tired. The way to have that steady pace, to be ready for when the doors open, to have the creative energy when the doors open, is to have a rhythm of rest in your life. And what I mean by that doesn't just mean sleeping, though it is really important, like we just talked about, to get at least 8 to 10 hours of sleep. It's making sure that your life is full of things that bring you fulfillment and peace. Rest does not have to just look like laying around all day. I used to think that was the case. I was terrible at resting, and I'm still learning it because this is a skill to be learned. But it isn't just sitting and wasting the day away. As an achiever, that was so painful for me. I was like, I don't understand this. I don't feel rested now because I'm so behind on all the things that I have, and I just spent the whole day just sitting around. What a waste, right? The whole day I was like, you're terrible for wasting a day, and how dare you? And that's not what rest is. Rest is finding the things that you love, finding the things that bring you peace, and doing those things. That's it. So if I find rest walking my dog, then I should walk my dog. If I find rest laying on grass and touching grass, then I should touch grass. If I find rest reading a book, if I find rest making a recipe, if I find rest dancing, if I find rest hanging out with my friends, if I find rest and fulfillment and peace, and whatever it is, whatever that looks like for you, you should add it to your days, or at least one day of the week. I would say to start with a day where you actually take a full day off, nothing creative, nothing work related, and you just do things for fulfillment and peace. Imagine if you had a routine in your life where at least once a week you got to be filled so that when you went into the week, you could pour out your creative energy and everything else that you need to get to those dreams, right? So I would suggest finding what you love. Some people, especially because of the pandemic, did not get to find things that they loved, hobbies, right? And a lot of creatives, their hobbies have become their job. So if I love to sing, suddenly I'm singing all the time and I don't find it a hobby anymore. That's my job. And so then when I go to do things that I love, I'm like, well, I don't want to sing. I've been doing that all week. And so then it's like, okay, well, we need to have hobbies outside of our creative things that we turned into jobs, right? And so it's like, I'm actually going to put a list in the description box of this episode of just a list of hobbies and activities that you could try to see if you like them. For example, axe throwing. I know that was out of left field. Most of you were probably like, huh? I have done axe throwing. I love it. Another one that I really love is golf. I sound like a 50-year-old man. Well, the axe throwing, not as much, but the golf, yes. But I really love nature, and golf is like a very peaceful way. I turn off my phone and I go play golf, and I really enjoy it. Some people do archery, adult gymnastics, adult dance. There are bowling. There are so many things that we should pick back up as a society that will bring you fulfillment and joy and fun. I think that's my second point. I think that you need to have fun because, as I mentioned before, if you aren't having lived experiences, you won't have a ton of creative fuel. There's this book called The Artist's Way, and I'm sure you've heard about it, but it's a spiritual journey to creative fulfillment. And it's all about learning how to be creative in a way that is free. So we have this side of our brain that's the logic brain, and we have this side of our brain that's the creative side. And sometimes when you're trying to create, you hear this voice in your head that's like, that's not right. But there's no right and wrong when it comes to creativity. So it's like how to make sure you are turning up the creative side of your brain and that logic side down when you're trying to create, and how to get in touch with your younger self. And they have these things that you do. It's like the artist date every single week where you take yourself out on a date. And it's supposed to connect with your inner child and explore what would have ignited your creativity as a kid and the wonder and awe of just being unabandoned in places. And the point of fun that I was talking about is very similar to that. It's like, okay, this creative date that I go on, axe throwing, is suddenly like, I feel invigorated. I feel so strong. I feel so cool. Oh my gosh. So when I go to make a song, suddenly that is brought into this creative space. So if you're doing that once a week, you're really fueling your creative self and your spirit. And so, like I said, those lived experiences are really going to help you in the future, but also it's just going to make you love your life, right? If you have something to look forward to, like I said, the day of rest, but also like one outing a week that is fun, or 15 minutes of fun. I love Sudoku, which I used to call Sudoku. And when I say used to, I mean yesterday, before my sister was like, it's Sudoku. Sudoku? I don't know. The one where like the boxes and the numbers. You know what I'm talking about. I love that game. I've been playing it since I was a kid, when it was like you had to buy the paper from like the Dollar Tree to like fill in the numbers and everything. But I recently picked it back up because I hate the subway. I've said that many a times on this podcast. I hate the subway. And I could not listen to music anymore. It was just too overstimulating. I couldn't have the headphones in with music. And I also didn't want to listen to podcasts because I do that in the gym. And I was kind of just like, I really wish I could turn off my brain. And so I downloaded a Sudoku app. And so now on the train, I play Sudoku. And that's my like 30 minutes of fun. I consider that fun. Fight me. Whatever you consider fun, you can also program it into your life so that it doesn't have to be like this whole event. But what a lot of people say, when I'm explaining these things is like, well, I don't have the time nor the money. And it's like, let me prove you wrong. Did you know on average that a person spends 2 hours and 45 minutes on their phone daily? So if I'm doing the math correctly, that's like more than 15 hours a week scrolling. Okay. So I'm not saying to throw away your phone, because in this world, that's just literally not going to happen. And it's not going to happen. But I do highly suggest taking maybe 30 minutes off a day, which gives you, math again, 1 hour, like 3 hours a week, maybe, if I'm good at math, to put towards something else. Maybe fun, maybe rest. Can you imagine if you added 3 hours of fun and rest in your week, like what your life would look like? And that's only taking 30 minutes off a day. So imagine if you took like an hour or two off a day to put those hours into things that are actually going to change your life, instead of just scrolling and seeing other people's lives through a screen. Because a lot of you think that you're having fun when you're scrolling on social media. You're watching other people live their lives and have fun instead of actually having fun. And what social media does to your brain, I've talked about this a ton. But with the rise of social media, we saw a rise in anxiety and depression and suicide in our generation. Guys. So then you're like, I hate my life. I'm so filled with anxiety. I'm so depressed. I'm so. And it's like, okay, well, you're not sleeping. And you don't put the right kind of nourishment into your body. And I know like diet culture, that went too far. There is too much of anything. I agree. But instead of swinging the pendulum to like the middle of like eating healthy and actually nourishing your body so that you feel good, we went like the complete other side, and we were like, diet culture, no, we're going all the way over here, and like swung the pendulum. And like now people just like eat McDonald's every single day. And then you're like, why do I feel like crap? Why do we have chronic illnesses popping up more and more and more? And it's like, well, we're sleeping yet less, we're eating worse, and we're not having any kind of fun in our lives or social interaction. And we're sitting and scrolling, and that does terrible things to our brain. And then we don't love our lives. And it's like, well, I wonder why. I didn't think I was going to be this blunt, but I guess when I don't type things out. Okay. But for real though, we know that we need to be sleeping and resting, like I said. We know that we need to be having fun, like I said. Oh, another thing, the money thing that I mentioned. So if you don't have time, you just have to scroll less for like 30 minutes. And there's a really good app. It's called ScreenZen. And no, this is not paid. I wish it was. ScreenZen. But my brother actually put me on it. And it's this app that essentially locks you out of every single app if you want it to. But you know how like the phone, like if you have Apple, it'll be like, oh, you only get to scroll for 30 minutes and you can like press ignore. This is not that option. You actually have a code that I suggest giving to someone else, that you have to input a code. And if you input a code too many times, you have to pay to unlock the app. And then what you can do is you can essentially set like a timer of like, I want to spend 2 hours on Instagram a day. And then you break up those 2 hours into increments. So if you want to spend 30 minutes at a time, you can decide to put a 2-hour gap where you can't unlock the app in between your 2-hour window. Does that make sense? So I'm on for 30 minutes and it locks me out for 2 hours. And then I can unlock the app for 30 minutes. And the thing about it is it's not 30 minutes on the app. It's 30 minutes from when you unlock it. So instead of scrolling for 30 minutes, so like if I unlock the app and then I scroll for 10 minutes and I leave, your 30 minutes are still going. So literally it's a really great app. I highly suggest it. It has taken me off of social media in a way that I didn't even realize I was on. And I kind of love it. But anywho, if money's the problem, let me once again say, no, it's not. And that's not saying you don't have money, because you probably are poor if you're a creative. Sorry, most of us make less than $20,000, which puts you at poverty line in New York City. But, which is, I think that's $1,600 a month. So if you make that or less, you're at the poverty line. But anywho, it's not saying that you need money for these things. It's saying that there are a lot of free things and you need to be creative about the way you have fun. You don't have to go out to the bar and spend like $50 on cocktails. You can go to a park and, I don't know, have a group of friends there, make a picnic from the food you have at home, bring a speaker, or just play it from your phone. I don't know. Go to Governor's Island in New York City. Why do I keep talking about Governor's Island? I don't know. It's $275, I think. You literally take a ferry. You're on a boat. And then you're on like a car-free, bike-only, see the views of New York, beautiful green pasture, little island. Come on now. And I'm sure, like, go on TikTok. I'm sure the algorithm's already listening to me right now. The For You page is going to be like, free things to do in New York City. But like, type in free things to do in New York City. There's always random pop-ups and random events and random concerts that are literally free. There's always a free way to do something. You just have to search for it. Which brings me to a really good point. All of these things are intentional and skillful. None of these things are going to happen by you being like, I really want to do that in your brain. These are things that you actually have to implement through action. I think a lot of times we all listen to podcasts and we're like, wow, that was so good. And then we don't do anything with the information that we just received. And it's like, if you want to love your life, you do have to take steps to change your life. You do. Okay? It's a skill. All of these things are a skill. Rest is a skill. Fun is a skill. And I want to bring up stability and routine. Now, routine is something that as a creative, man, it can be really hard to have. Same thing with stability, because most of us, like I said, are poor and at the poverty line. And so we don't have great stability, because a lot of stability in this world comes from money. And so it's like, how can I have a stable life and a routine? That is a great way to live your life, I think, because like as humans, we're literally programmed to want to know what comes next and to have the safety net of knowing that we are taken care of. But when you don't have stability and you don't have routine, it actually puts us like back in the cave days when like we were like, how are we going to feed ourselves? And it puts us into fight or flight. And then you're just like stressed and your cortisols rise, and then you're anxiety driven and depression and all the things that we've been talking about, those spike, and it's a whole thing. So like, how do we become financially stable? I've had a ton of podcast episodes on that, but I'll also link in the description really great resources to start being financially responsible and literate so that you can have stability and how to make your money work for you. But a little quick tip is to get a job and humble yourself to get maybe two. And they might not be jobs that you want to work, but they're going to be jobs that you need to work for a little bit. And then you need to have savings, at least $1,000 in savings. And then you want to start paying off your debt slowly but surely. And then once you've paid off your debt, you can start saving for things that you really, really want, like that vacation in Hawaii. Okay? Those are just some quick steps. I know it's a lot more than that. Go to the resources that I put in the bio. But also, routine. This is something you can do now. Like I said, the body craves it. So if that is making sure your body knows that every single night you're at least going to get 8 hours of sleep, commit to that. Have a reminder that tells you when to go to sleep. Have a wind down routine so that your body knows when it's time to go to sleep. Maybe it's a shower, you dim the lights, you have the rain sounds playing, you read a book, you turn off your phone, and suddenly you're asleep. And your body's going to thank you for it. Maybe it's having one meal a day that's actually nutritious. Because like I said, our body runs on fuel. And if we are feeding it things that don't actually give us energy and fuel, that have no nutrients at all, then you wonder why you are literally struggling to get out of bed every single day. At least give your body one meal that's full of nutrients. At least one. Let it rely on that. Drink some water. Okay, it's helpful. Let your body know that it's going to get the water that it needs. All of these things are going to be ways that your body can slowly adjust and develop a routine. Maybe it's 15-minute walk every single day because touching grass is really great for you. There's this thing called the default mode network in your brain, the DFM, where essentially it's like if you have a ton of files in your brain, it's like the part of your brain that goes through all the files and it's like, let's make sure everything is like organized and we've actually thought through everything that's happening. I don't know why I'm doing this shake right now. I'm like seeing, I don't know if you've ever seen that SpongeBob episode where like all the files are on like fire in his head. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. But anywho, it's not like fires. It doesn't destroy everything, but it definitely does organize it all so that it's like, oh, yay. So when you're like stuck on a problem and then you do something that's kind of like, I don't know, your brain can like wander. So like walking, yoga, that type of thing. And it's not like distracted by like a podcast or like music or something like that. The DFM, default mode network. Yeah, DFM. I don't know. Default mode network is definitely the name of it. But that then can go in and start making sure like, oh, I think this would make sense here. And actually, if we worked around in this way, then we could make this happen and yada, yada, yada. And it slowly just gives you all of you like that's when like you're like trying to think of the name of an actor. And then like 2 days later, it pops up and when you're doing like the most random thing, it's like, oh yeah, that's the default mode network working. You want to give your brain time to do this every single day, and things like a 15-minute walk can let it do that, and then you'll slowly realize that like, oh, I'm not that stressed and like life is okay. So having a routine, whatever that looks for you, whatever you love, put it in your days, and it doesn't have to be for an hour at a time. It can be for 10. You can do yoga in the morning for 10 minutes right when you wake up. I promise you, it's easy. You just have to do it. These are all skills. The last thing I would say for loving your life, I feel like I'm rambling. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. Never done this off the cuff. The last thing I would say for loving your life is gratitude. And I know you're probably like, bro, life is hard right now. I am continuously disappointed because I'm in the season of not getting the achievements that I want. And you're telling me to be grateful? Yes, I am. Did you know that like when you are thankful and when you take a overhead look at your life, you are putting your life into perspective? So I know a lot of the times creatives are like, oh, I'm not doing anything right now and I'm not creative at all and I just suck and I'll never get to my dreams and I'm awful. And then you're just like in this constant like your thoughts are just like negative and you're in the spiral and you can't really get out. Imagine if you were like, okay, let me take a step back and look at my entire life and the timeline and then look at it from above and be like, oh, actually, I just did that thing yesterday that was creative and I didn't even realize it. Oh, I have this in 2 weeks That's going to be really fun. And I'm actually very excited about it. Oh, it was only a month ago that I did that accolade. Oh, in 2 months, I'll hear about this thing. Like, when you're able to look at your life from an overhead perspective, you actually get insight into what you should be grateful for and what's actually happening in your life instead of what's happening in that specific moment. This is also why community is so great, because they can snap you out of that spiral and be like, no, bro, like, you're actually really talented. Okay. And so when I am grateful for the little things, like the fact that I can eat today, the fact that I can walk, the fact that I can breathe, like most people are not grateful in those small ways. But when you are, it makes you realize how beautiful your life actually is. And like I said, even though we're disappointed, even though life looks like it sucks right now, it is a skill to notice the gratitude, and that skill will allow you to love the things that are beautiful in your life. And it's not saying you have to be like every single day, oh, life is good and jolly and wonderful. No, it's like if I have like 100 negative thoughts a day, then like I'm going to try to have at least one positive one, where I don't even need to be like, oh, everything's dandy. It's just like, I'm so glad I could eat today. You know what I'm saying? And then the next day it's like, okay, I had 99 bad thoughts and I had 2 good ones. And it's like, I'm wanting to do 1 degree closer to the life that I love. Whatever that goal is that we talked about at the beginning of like what your life could look like and what you would love to do every single day, like have it just like 1 degree closer to that. We're not trying to do a 360 overnight. That's honestly not even going to happen. If it does, you have a superpower, but like a 360 is not going to happen. And so it's like, how can I wake up and literally do 1 degree closer to where I want to be? Not in the sense of creative achievement, but in the sense of loving my life in the now when I don't have the accolades of being creative. And when I am grinding and doing all the work, how can I still love the ordinary life that I'm in and find purpose in it and find fulfillment and joy in it? Okay, guys, I feel like I was just like going for so long. I don't know how long that was, but all those things have really helped me love my life. And I didn't love my life for a long time. I was kind of in this just like cycle of like living. Like I said, 2 alive to die and 2 dead to live. That's where I was at. Like I was just like in this routine of like wake up, work, try to get to where I'm going, finally get there. It's like a hit of like cocaine. I don't know why I chose cocaine. Hello? Sometimes you ain't invited to the function because you don't do coke. And that's okay. This is why I don't usually do things off the cuff. Anywho, it's like a hit. You're at the high and then suddenly you're like back down to the low, and it's like, oh my God, I have withdrawals from like everybody congratulating me and everybody being like, oh, great job. And like being like, wow, I really like did it. I finally made it. And like suddenly I'm back down at the bottom and I wasn't happy when I got back to the bottom. And it's like, how do I elevate my life to where it's up at the top in line with my creative achievements, so that when I hit that creative achievement, it isn't like a high where I'm like, wonderful, a hit. And then it's like back down to like regular life. It's like, no, my life is already up here. So then when I have an achievement, it's like, yay, that was wonderful. And we're just going to stay right here because my life is already beautiful and lovely and I love it. Okay. These things you have to work at. They're not going to happen overnight. I really challenge you to develop the skills of rest, stability, routine, fun, and gratitude, and do it slowly. Like I said, this isn't a 360. Okay. Yeah. Okay, guys, that felt good. If you made it to the end of this, wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. I thank you for tuning into Suffering for Art. We have been reaching so many more people, and it's really cool. And we have social media accounts now. It's at Suffering for Art Podcast on everything, TikTok and Instagram if you want to follow along. I do a ton of resources and all the things. But also, I really encourage you to share this episode with someone who you think would love it, or who you think you want to have a conversation about with later. And you can always donate to Suffering for Art. The link is in the podcast episode, as well as all the resources that I talked about before. And I just want to say thank you for tuning in. Your support means so much. And I am so happy to grow with you. I'm so happy to learn with you. And I will see you next time on the Suffering for Art podcast. Thank you for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. You are more than welcome to check the Thank you for tuning into this episode. If you made it this far, I'm so proud of you. Look at your attention span going. I'm so proud. If you found this encouraging, like it, subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend, discuss it, comment. I would love to talk to you about this information. As always, all the resources are available in the description box, as well as a link to donate to the Suffering for Art podcast if you feel so led to. And as always, I am so happy to grow with you. I am so happy to learn with you. And I will see you next time on the next episode of Suffering for Art.